So what's the best or easiest differential or the cheapest differential to turn into a chain drive? You can obviously use a second-hand repurposed differential from a typical front-wheel drive car, or even a rear-wheel drive car like a Mazda MX-5. But a lot of those differentials have done a lot of miles and they may be a bit worn. So ideally you want to go for an aftermarket LSD type differential. My preference is for the ATB, that's an automatic torque biasing type of differential. It uses sets of helical gears for the differential effect, rather than using plate and ramp and other methods of getting an LSD. Get some grease off this before I get it all over my hands. This particular diff here is a Blackline branded ATB differential. Blackline in the UK is stocked by Raleigh Design. In general they're about half the price of an equivalent Quaife ATB differential, which makes them most attractive. Quality seems pretty good, good quality steel being used in them, and they seem very good in operation. This version is the Ford IB5 size. That's the differential you'd find in a Ford Fiesta, Ford Escort, that sort of thing. It's quite light. I think it weighs around about 4.5 kilograms for the bare unit. You do get heavier ones. This one back here is based on an MX-5 version of the Blackline differential. It's a bit heavier, it's about 1 kilogram heavier for the base unit. It also has some other disadvantages other than the size and weight. The Ford differential is designed for a crown wheel to bolt on this outer face of the differential, which is quite advantageous because it moves the sprocket to the left of the car, of the centre line, by a few more millimetres than normal if it was mounted on the opposite side. That's an advantage because the axle or the chain line is usually off-centred to the left of the chassis centre line. So the further that the sprocket's over here is the less you have to offset the diff to compensate. This needs a few modifications to turn it into a chain drive differential. Essentially you want to keep the lubricant inside it, and there were a series of 5 holes in the faceplate that needed 5, 6, 7, 8 holes in the faceplate that needed brazed up. Just brazed them with some TIG braze and buffed them off. This end, again, there's various holes that the lubricant would run out of. To get over that problem is to make up an aluminium can that slots over and then bonds on with adhesive sealant that stops the grease coming out. It's another advantage of the ATB style differentials with the gears. You can use typical general purpose lithium grease to grease up all the gears, and it stays put on all the gears mostly because the gears are out here, whereas on a conventional differential you'd have big voids in the centre and gears would be out here. And once this can is finished off, I can put, or before it's finished off, I can put in a series of grease nipples that will go through the can and line up with these ports. That enables you to top up the grease. The sprocket bolts onto these holes here. There is quite a weird pattern of holes in here. That's a throwback to the Ford Fiestas. Early ones had 6 bolt holes to hold on the crown wheel. Later ones had 8 holes. So this has been drilled for both 6 and 8 holes. So you can use the appropriate number of holes to bolt your sprocket on. The spigots on these are imperial size. They're 1.5" OD for the spigots for the bearings. It's quite easy to get sealed bearings that fit on that diameter. Some of the other differentials that you get have really odd sized spigots, things like 41.3 and some of them aren't an exact equivalent of an imperial size either, and some of them are really obscure, and if you can find a sealed bearing from it, it's exceedingly expensive for the bearings, whereas these are off the shelf stock items, about £13 each. Normally on a Ford Fiesta or Escort you would use a CV joint similar to this. This is an early one. This is the ball type. You can't see it in there, but there's a pile of balls in there that gives the articulation. Later ones are tripod type. I don't have a complete tripod one, but that's the end of the tripod one. You can see it's got sort of 3 lobes in there that roller bearings go into, and that gives you the articulation. And these just push in like that. There's a clip on the end of them that retains it once you install it. Again, readily available, either the ball type or the tripod type. They're round about £30–35 each for the standard CV joints. The other alternative is to utilise a custom made flanged joint, or output shaft should I say, and then these would bolt on your Lowbro 100mm overall diameter 86mm PCD bolt-on CV joints. Typically you'd find these on Ford Sierras, BMWs, Volkswagens, Audis. I had these specially made up at great expense. It wasn't really worth my while though, because these I had to, A, they were very expensive, and B, I had to buy quite a few of them. What I have done in the past, or subsequent to that, is to buy an aftermarket CV joint like this, cut off the bit of the tripod I don't want, and then weld on a flange here. That works quite successfully. These are an approximate copy of the what were they now? The Ford XR2 Fiesta used a flange very similar to that. They dropped it on the later XR2Is. They just went back to a CV joint. But the early XR2s had like an output like that. They're probably a bit rare to find second hand. That one's actually that's a Tranex one, which was bought over by Quaife. Quaife do their own version of this as well, but again, exceedingly expensive. Do I have one of the ones I made? Yes. That's one I got made. You'll notice that it's got a slightly bigger offset here. That was to give me more clearance for bolting on the side plates on the chain ride differentials. So again, you just plug in each side. So overall, it's a nice little unit. Very, very similar, once you've built it up to that stage, it's very similar to a Quaife QDF 7ZR sealed chain drive unit, which is again based on a Ford Fiesta unit. The Quaife unit is slightly different, and that spigot there is a bit shorter, or should I say it's built out to about there to accommodate the bearings that are used, because the bearings that we fit are narrower than that flange there. What I normally have to do is put a spacer ring on there before I put the bearing on, and that brings it up to the same size as the Quaife. But yeah, overall a very nice little differential. Goes out the road. This one here, it was based on, a bit closer. This one was based on a black line Mazda MX-5 ATB differential. As I was saying, it's about a kilogram heavier than the Ford version. Has some other disadvantages as well. I'll show you some other footage of this without the sprocket attached, and you'll see how the sprocket's been attached to this. The crown wheel on this type of differential was designed to fit from this face, i.e. the inside face of the crown wheel flange, which means that you haven't got the sprocket as far that way as you'd really like. So what I've done, there's a ring bolts onto where the crown wheel was, and then the sprocket bolts from the right hand side, sorry, left hand side of the car, if you assume that's the left hand side of the car. It bolts onto the outside face of that flange and effectively moves it as far left as possible. So that sprocket is sitting on the rim of the crown wheel flange. This has also got a reverse motor attached, hence the little ring gear that's attached there. Again, overall size is a bit wider than the Ford unit. The other disadvantage is the types of CV joints you get. This particular unit is normally be used on the 1.8 litre Mark 1, Mark 2 versions of the MX-5 up to 2005, and they use this style of ball type CV joint. The way the case for the rear diff of the MX-5 works means that the oil seal sits way out here. If you compare that with that, you'll see there's quite a difference in the overall length of the unit. So if I push it into the differential here, you'll see it sticks way out here. If I was using that type of CV joint, I would have a much longer oil seal carrier that would come out about another inch, so that the oil seal would run on the journal out there. Strictly speaking, you don't need oil seals on them, but it does stop them going inside. So my solution for this one again was to have a custom made flanged output shaft. Again, they were rather expensive. It took a long time to make, and I had to buy a lot of them. So when that goes in, it pushes in a lot further, and the oil seal can sit a lot further in. Again, uses the 100mm low-grow bolt-on CV joint. You can utilise these, you just need to make the oil seal carrier longer. A good strong differential, the MX-5 version. And obviously if you want to use MX5 CV joints in drive shafts, yeah, you can use that. The problem with using standard drive shafts from one of the cars is they're not necessarily the right length for you. Because of the offset of the differential and the chain line, it's not necessarily the same position as the crown wheel would have been on the original car. So the drive shaft lengths are probably not the right length, and the offset between them is probably not right, so you probably have to have new shafts made up, in which case you could have MX5 outers and Ford inners if you really wanted, and use a Ford differential, a Ford based differential for the chain drive, even though you're using MX5 uprights. The Fiesta and the early MX5s have the same spline count on the axles, so you could technically use a Ford inner CV joint into a Ford, which one? Now I've confused myself. Why do you want to do that? Yeah, you could use a Ford differential and then couple it up to the splines of an MX5 early type axle. But again, that's only if you had an axle that suits your application. It is possible to use it, but probably not really something you would consider doing. And similarly, the outer end, you can either build uprights that use the MX5 CV joint, the outer CV joint, or the Ford Fiesta or Ford Escort outer CV and hub. It opens up a few more choices for designing hubs. But, the main disadvantage of this is the physical size and the weight is considerably more than the Ford item. Potentially stronger output shafts, but you're limited if you're using standard ones. There is another option for output shafts for this. You can get the I think it's the Type 1 Torsen output shafts from the early Mazda MX-5s. Have a flanged output shaft with the same spline as that. You plug directly in there. The Torsen output shafts have got a square pattern, bolt pattern on the face. I think it's 110mm overall diameter. I can't remember what the spacing, the 4 bolts for the special CV joints on those versions is. But again, you're using a fairly rare output shaft if you can find one, and probably an even a rarer CV joint that still works. It is yet another option. But my preference is the Ford IB5 size versions. Relatively light, relatively strong, good choice of output shafts, good choice of axles. And these are automatic torque biasing differentials, a form of limited slip differential. On road and track, they're pretty good differentials. They're mild mannered on the road, because they really only sort of come into play when there is a loss of some traction on one of the wheels. They tend not to promote understeer, unlike plate and ramp diffs, which can be a bit harsh on the road, and they can lock up and give you a bit of understeer on rear wheel drive applications. They're also noisy, they can chatter. You need to select the appropriate ramp angles, you need to select the appropriate spring preload rates on them, whereas these, there are no adjustment to them at all, exceedingly low maintenance. You just put grease in them and that's it. Whereas a plate and ramp, you've got special oils, special friction modifiers, the clutch plates can wear out, you can break them easily as we found out. So I would use these on most applications. The only time you wouldn't want to use this is on a pure off-road vehicle which runs on really soft, say soft sand, really slick mud, because if you lose traction on one wheel totally, you lose traction totally in on both axles, the way that these geared differentials work. Whereas a plate and ramp one, you can break one drive shaft and keep driving for a while until you break the second drive shaft, of course. With this, if you break a drive shaft, you've lost all your drive. But the main advantage is they're mild-mannered and they're low maintenance. These are the Blackline ATB LSD differentials. The one sitting on top of the box is the Ford IB5 Fiesta Escort style one. It's the part number HLF013. The Mazda MX-5 one is the one on the left there, the boxes anyway, empty box. And it's got a part number of HLF030. That's the MX-5 1.8 Mark II version. The distributor in the UK for the Blackline differentials is Raleigh Design.